George Pascoe-Watson, former political editor of The Sun, and he joins us to talk about, well, all things political. A very good morning to you, George.
Good morning, Julia. Hi, Sam.
Big day today in terms of the Strategic Defence Review. Huge sums of money, lots just sort of stuff that prime ministers, as you know, love. And you spent many years following PMs around doing this stuff. They love posing in front of the flags and big equipment and shaking hands with military people. Almost across the board, political parties, I mean, from the Green Party to Reform, are agreeing on we need to spend more money on defence. But from your knowledge over the years, and I know you spent a lot of time with military, you were embedded with forces and things, Iraq war and that. Is what he's announcing today, is that enough money? And are we actually going to have safe borders?
I think the number one question is, can you ever spend enough money on defence? And in this country, in this world, I'm actually pleased and applaud Keir Starmer and John Healey for taking these steps. The second thing is, if you're in the defence industry in Britain, you are absolutely celebrating, because this is phenomenal news for sales and for Britain's position in the world, because when we sell military equipment around the world, we also have greater power. We know how that military system works, and that is critical, particularly in the new age of space age defense technology. So it's a very good thing on the face of it. Obviously, making sure that it's not just an ambition but an actual commitment is seriously important. 12 new submarines is huge news, and will employ many very skilled engineers up and down the country, particularly in Scotland. So you have to think about the Scottish politics there as well. The Labour Prime Minister looking after Scottish workers is very important in the battle with the SNP. Is it ever going to be enough? I don't think you can ever be complacent about defence. As we know, security is the number one priority of any government. So in a day that we could be watching a Prime Minister turning his head and looking away from defence, I'm pleased that he's doing it. It's the right thing to do. But one of the questions we haven't discussed in the media recently is the importance of increasing the number of men and women serving in the
Well, indeed, force. And it was a question I put actually to Defence Minister Alistair Cairns about, the actual numbers we've got. We're down to 70,000. It's supposed to be 73. But even that doesn't touch the sides of the forces we would actually need in the event of not just defending ourselves, but being able to put peacekeeping forces, if there ever came to it, in Ukraine, or defending the Baltic states or any other of our NATO allies.
And there's a real danger of running away with the idea that technology replaces humans in military, and that's just not true. You speak to anybody in the military senior, and they make the point that if you take land, you have to hold land. There have to be logistical supports. There has to be everybody from the catering people to the science people, the health people, everybody. And it needs human beings, not just smart weapons. So that's a really big debate. And as a society, are we prepared for that? Do young men and women, are they interested in joining our services? It looks like the recruitment numbers are dwindling. And what are we doing?
I'm not surprised, though. The adverts in recent years, and I've noticed they have changed in the last 6 months or so, but the adverts were all like, we need people with mental health problems. Come and be trans in the military. It's like, no, come and get a career, come and fight for your country, come and be proud of what you're doing every day. Those are the sort of young people we want. But we know the surveys showing, and the same for America, something like 40% only of youngsters in this country would be willing to fight for their country. That's damning.
You have to ask why that is. Our young people are very, very intelligent people in today's world. They're weighing up their possibilities, weighing up their opportunities, and they're saying, what is the future? Also, don't forget that in my generation, certainly, I wouldn't class you in mine, Julia.
I hate to tell you, you know perfectly well we're the same generation.
But in my generation, I come from a family. My father served in the Royal Air Force. He was a Spitfire pilot. There are links in my generation to people who have been in the military, and those links have been dying for generations. And so it's not so much in the culture anymore. And so it's quite a job for any government, whether it's Labour, Conservative, whoever, to try and encourage the young people to think of a real career in the military.
A career is one thing, but your country being under attack, I'm not talking about going off and fighting, someone would say foreign overseas wars, fighting the idea that people wouldn't think that they would fight to defend their own country, I think is absolutely terrifying. But again, if you tell people, particularly young people, their country country's terrible, there's nothing worth standing up for, no values, then what a surprise. Let's talk also about protecting our other borders. Again, a question I put to Alistair Cairns, the Defence Minister, about are we confident we can actually protect our borders from an invasion fighting force when we can't protect it from young men without passports, let alone rifles, turning up on our shores on dinghies. We've now got a prediction of some 50,000 illegal migrants coming on boats alone, still coming through on lorries as well, by the way. Other people, huge number of people, tens of thousands overstaying visas and then claiming asylum, having arrived here legally. But this comes after 1,194 people crossed on Saturday alone as the French police stood around with their video cameras and their gauloises. Can we protect our borders?
It's increasingly impossible for this government or any government to actually stop this happening. Your point about the trucks is very important. The trucks has been going 10, 15, 20 years. And because they weren't very visible to the media, that carried on in the background and hasn't really caused anybody so much political aggro. The boats are visible. That Saturday, of course, was still in May. We're now into June. We've got the whole of July, August and September to come with great weather. We see a heat wave coming to Britain, apparently, the weather
Oh, yay, really? Oh,
yes,
good.
So one upside.
There's a trade-off, isn't there? Heat wave, counter migrants.
But so obviously politically, this is a real headache for Keir Starmer, who has actually said we will stop the boats. And of course, unless you are prepared to take further action and talk about the HCR, then you can't really do it. And as you say, it is quite formidable to watch French guards, French police on the beaches, taking videos, watching, but not taking any steps to prevent these young men, and it is mainly young men, from getting on board these dinghies.
It is extraordinary, isn't it? Let's also talk about what's going on in the heart of government, because we know, I mean, I have to say, I think John Healey is very much seeing him, the Defence Secretary himself, as a future leader. Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, a popular figure with many, apart from the actual Labour Party, interestingly. But there's no doubt at all, Keir Starmer is facing a lot of grief over not just what his Chancellor does, Rachel Reeves, in terms of the purse strings and dealing with benefits and but also of his Attorney General, Lord Hermer. He's a man I think pretty much no one outside of the dinner parties of Islington had actually heard of, big human rights lawyer. It turns out, I mean, in a speech to RUSI last week, the Royal United Service Institute, thought it was a good idea to basically compare people who wanted us to leave the European Convention on Human Rights, say Reform and Tory politicians, to Nazis, comparing them to lawyers on behalf of basically, Hitler in the 1930s wanting to leave sort of rule-based law. He also authorised Lucy Connolly's prosecution for a tweet, and that 31-month sentence she's still serving. At the same time, he declined to review, as Attorney General, unduly lenient sentences for a rapist and a paedophile. Does he have to go?
There's increasing pressure on Keir Starmer to deal with his Attorney General, and I think probably for the political reason that he's going to attract more and more negative headlines. That's the difficulty for a Prime Minister. It may not be that the person is bad at their job or has transgressed in some way, that they become a political difficulty. When you have an Attorney General whose guilt is on foot-in-mouth disease, which is becoming the problem, then they become quite difficult to manage. And you need to support that person, because our former colleagues, the political journalists, on a daily basis are asking the Prime Minister's official spokesperson, does the Prime Minister have faith in the Attorney General? Yeah. The answer has to be yes. It can't be anything other than yes. And as long as that goes on and Labour MPs are beginning to ask questions about his political ability, then it's a challenge. The point here is that Lord Hermer is a lawyer, a very distinguished lawyer. The fact is, all lawyers have to take on cases which they wouldn't necessarily support in private life. But here is a man who has actually expressed his political views during his career. Yeah. And it seems like there's a perception that he is playing politics with the law. Now, I'm not saying that, but certainly colleagues of his own law. Lord Glassman has said that, a Labour MP, a Labour peer. So it's an impression thing, and in politics, as we know, perception is 9/10 of the law.
I
and
mean,
it
he's.
gets in the way of doing the job.
I mean, not only is he, Keir Starmer's big mate. I mean, he's part of the key advice over the Chagos Island surrender. He's given advice, and again, this would be his choice. He's not, he's not having to do this. Gives choice to Caribbean countries wanting slavery reparations from Britain. He represented Jerry Adams against the BBC. Shamima Begum. Wanting her rights to try and come back here. Also numerous ISIS and Al-Qaeda operatives as well and activists. I mean, he doesn't off-pick them. I mean, it seems to me that, he makes interesting choices. Just finally, I do want to ask you about more homegrown stuff. People pay their local, council tax, and we've seen council tax go up, 5% pretty much for everybody, if not more in some places. The new leaders of reform of the Kent County Council, they say, no, we are going to be going in and we're going to be installing our own version of DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, that Elon Musk was leading until last week at the White House in America. And we are going to go in and we are going to, having won a load of council seats, basically find where the savings can be found. Do you think they'll actually make big savings? And if they do, will that actually be quite a game changer in British politics?
Let's hope so. You can only celebrate the forensic accountancy that is being put in place in Kent, or any council, or any government for that matter. Anything that uses taxpayers' money, it's your money, it's my money, it's our viewers' money, and it's real money. And it's very, very important that there's a real check kept on it. So let's hope they can find some efficiency and make sure that that becomes the watchword of any government.
I mean, every government goes into power and says we're going to deal with this and make savings. They never do, but I'm sure you or I, anyone working in the private sector, could find savings like that. George Pascoe-Watson, always good to talk to you. Thank you so much.